What's your favorite scene in the movie?
It's really hard to say. I mean, there's so many things that I really loved. There's a scene that we shot at I think it's the world's only psytrance pizza restaurant in Sea Point called Caller Pizza, which is incredible. I mean, a lot of the settings of the film, I chose the locations based on places that I just felt like going to. They weren't places I knew particularly, but I just wanted an excuse to go there. So I'd heard about this place and I'd driven past it in Sea Point on Regent Road. I really recommend it as a pizza restaurant. It's very special.
It's a psytrance
Yeah,
pizza
so the whole
restaurant.
place is decked out in like UV like stuff, and there's like 10 video screens going at any point of like psytrance like festivals that the owners who've shot over the last like 10, 20 years.
Oh my gosh.
And they have like 100 pizzas all named after psytrance DJs.
That's amazing.
And we shot a scene there where Chi and Andila's characters are going out with their two friends who are like a perfect couple, and they're getting all this relationship advice from this perfect kind of couple. And I think it's just like such a real scene. Like we've all been there where like we have someone who's like telling us how to run our personal life, and they have the best intentions for us, but often like it's, you know, these are decisions that only we can make, and sometimes we even struggle to make them. So it's a scene that I feel is like really real, but it's happening in this really weird place. So yeah, it is pretty fun. It's a funny scene as well. So
What was the hardest scene to shoot?
Wow, there was several really challenging ones. I mean, we shot, mostly on location. So often, like, you know, the world happens to you, and you just have to kind of cope with it. I mean, we shot at a kind of dicing rally on Klipfontein Road in Gatesville, and that was kind of interesting because we had a scene where the little brother character, played by Mohammed Yansali, is out with Lowe's character Eugene, and they get separated, and this little kid gets, well, he's not little, he's 17, he'd get really angry if he heard me say he's a little kid. He was little at the time, not anymore. But yeah, he gets beaten up, and he's like got this bloody nose, and so we had to do the scene where no one really knew we were shooting. We were shooting with a very small camera and like a very small crew, so we weren't very noticeable. But some people who knew Diane from the neighborhood kind of saw that this was going on, and it looked like this like huge white guy was like abducting this little kid and just beating him up with this like, you know, nose, and they started like kind of coming after them, and they were in character, and like and they hadn't heard me call cut because they were like far away at that point because they'd just walked off, and yeah, so like dealing with that kind of stuff was challenging. But I think what more difficult was kind of just like, again, managing the very emotional scenes, because the film really, I mean, it's something I'm very proud of about it, is that it takes you on this kind of, I mean, I hate this phrase, but I have to use it, as like this emotional roller coaster, which it really does, these ups and downs, and managing those kind of moments while shooting them, and also making sure that the atmosphere was right for the actors was always challenging, and making them feel like they could go as far as they wanted to go. But you know, I think it all shows in the film.
I'm always so interested to hear from the directors. What was it like sitting down and watching the final product for the first time?
Well, I was involved with things, or pretty much all aspects of the film from the very beginning to right up until like, the end. So I was watching it constantly all the time. So there's never really been a moment where I've like had to sit down and like be like, okay, I'm now going to watch the finished film. But I mean, I suppose the equivalent moment was maybe when we premiered the film in Durban, and the cinema, you know, I think we were this tiny little movie, no one really like knew about us, we didn't have money for publicity, so like no one, like we kind of came out of nowhere, and people were like, what is this film? And we managed to sell out the first screening, and there's people sitting in the aisles, and it was just this really great vibe, and there wasn't a seat for me, so I was like standing like in the corridor like squashed because there were people literally packing the whole aisle. And as soon as it started, I could feel like this was all worth it, and I could just feel people like letting go and like going with the film, and that was just, you know, that was all worth it, definitely.
Wow. And 3 awards, you got 3 awards at the Durban
right,
International Film Festival. Did you think this was going to happen? Did you think this movie was going to blow up the way it has?
I mean, I'm pretty ambitious, so I was hoping, you know. I mean, every, you know, filmmaker wants their film to, like, you know, be loved by everyone, and that's never going to happen. I mean, you know, especially a film like ours, I think, you know, but I think what I wasn't, you know, what I was really, really hoping for, and this is something I didn't necessarily expect, is that I've had, you know, people who've watched it who come to me afterwards, and they're kind of quite shaken, and at first I think they didn't enjoy it because they seemed quite troubled and like, you know, distressed, and they're like, I was just crying in your film, and I don't really know why. And I mean, for me, that was something that I really expected, like to because this is something I love so much about cinema, is that it is able to give people, it's like, you know, this two-dimensional medium, and it can give people a real tangible emotional response, and it's something we don't even understand, but it's like happening to us whether we like it or not. And I really didn't expect to be able to do that with my first film. I was like, you know, if I'm lucky I can tell a story and entertain people for an hour and a half, that would be great. And the fact that, you know, I think, you know, if people have, not that it's a, you know, the film's not a tearjerker, it's pretty funny at other points, and it's, you know, it's kind of like, it's kind of multiple genres rolled into one, but just the fact that it touched people in that way, and about a side of love that I think is often kind of very much set aside, because we're told if love's not working out for you, then either break up with that person or something wrong with you, you know. But I think love is very complicated, and we don't really have the vocabulary to speak about it, I think, a lot of the time. So I think the film allows people that catharsis, which is something I'm very proud of.
Are you working on anything new?
Yeah, I'm busy writing a couple of things at the moment, but I'm hoping that next year I'll be able to shoot my Western, which is called Flatland, and set in the Karoo, and in contemporary South Africa, and all the kind of leads are women. And there's one horse that's also a woman, so even the horse is female. So that should be really cool. Yeah, and it's set in winter, so hopefully we'll be able to shoot that around Beaufort West next year.
That's awesome. I can't wait for that.
Thank you.
Now, when and where can we see Love the One You Love?
Cool. So it's screening in Cape Town at the Labia and in Joburg at the Bioscope, and it is also, for those of you know, anyone listening who is not in those cities, it's also going to be streaming all, you know, throughout Africa on Vimeo on demand from the same day for 2 weeks. So if you're not in those cities or you're elsewhere on the continent, you'll be able to watch it that way as well.
Great, Jenna. Thank you very much for coming in and sharing.
Thank you for having me.